Okay, so hard to believe. Time goes fast when you're locked at home. Welcome to our fifth session. Seems fast, and I'm going to ask people about. We're going to do a sixth session, and I'm going to ask people to think about volunteering to take 5 minutes in the next session and talk about what their key takeaways and learnings have been over the last month, how their thinking has revised on these various topics, and what wisdom you'd like to share with other of the participants here. So think about that. And if you're interested in doing that, then just put a text message up and we'll pick up your name and we'll be in touch with you about that. Or you can just reach out to me directly using the information on the last slide. So that's it, a project volunteer. Okay, thank you. All right, and just to go over where we are in the program and what our goals are. So we set this program with the idea of doing the following things: discussing the fundamentals of supporting technology for online and distance learning, talking about the curriculum issues and strategies, talking about the challenges of distance learning, the importance of organizational structure and staff training. That was pretty much last week. Today we're talking about socio-emotional issues and support, and next week focused solution proposals. This is just in case you don't have nightmares and wake up shrieking, thinking about these issues. This is the situation we're in. An economic downturn, no sense of safety, a lack of connectedness, hopelessness a lot of people have about this. How does it get resolved? Anger, distrust about people in power and our administrations and governments, self-efficacy in question, how much can we really handle on ourselves by ourselves? And there's grief due to personal losses. I personally know 4 people who died from COVID, and the whole process doesn't really give people time to grieve, right? We don't have funerals, we don't have memorial services. We're on to the next problem. So this is the situation we're all coping with. Everyone who's on this program is coping with it. So this was a study that McKinsey did, reported signs of distress related to COVID, and respondents reported feeling anxious and depressed in the past week. Respondents reported the level of distress they felt. And so, anxious and depressed, yes. Anxious but not depressed, yeah, about fewer but a significant number. And about a third of all respondents reported neither being anxious nor depressed, to which I would add, not yet. Sooner or later, this will catch up with them, maybe even after it's all done. And you can see that that the level of this distress is very significant. So we know we're dealing with a real problem. And so, here are all of you in the principles, social emotional competencies and well-being. This is your world and where you're providing leadership. So this is, you have to provide effective leadership. You need to maintain healthy relationships with the people you work with and the people who work for you. You have to have a family and community partnerships reaching out from your institution. You need to have effective social emotional learning implementation. You get all this, you make the climate in your school healthier, and you lead to some positive outcomes. And then this is just the contextual factors: the school, the community, the political system, that's leading it. And, once again, and we've talked about this before, you are in the center of a very complex system, making this a very, very difficult job to do. So the key components of social and emotional learning: self-management, managing emotions and behaviors to achieve your goals; self-awareness, responsible decision-making; relationship skills, and social awareness. And if you and your teachers and your students are going to advance in their social and emotional learning and coping skills, they need to build all of these, and your program needs to work on all of these for them. And this is a big job. Any one of them is a big job. All 5 of them is a really big job. Okay, another way to look at this, coming from the, this is sort of like a hierarchy of needs. Physical needs, people, need to feel secure and safe. Mental needs, people need to build psychological resilience. People have varying amounts of resilience. I would say generally, the younger a person is, the less chance, the opportunity they've had to build resilience over their lives. Relational needs, and this is threatened here because we're dealing with fewer people. We're dealing with them through tools like we are, which is fantastic, but not a replacement for in-person connection. Okay, and another way to look at this, the student triangle of support, and this will reflect some of the things we've talked about before. So students, teachers, parents, and this is this sort of golden triangle for us. And the needs to be support and feedback and communications. And so what does this, come down to? Hold on one second. What does this come down to? I'm just admitting a couple other people. So what does it come down to is that you're dealing with multiple groups. You have to communicate with them to get information, to get facts, to communicate information to them, to all of these groups, and to allow this feedback loop to go on. And students should be, and you see support connects to students from both legs of the triangle. Students need support to cope with this environment and to move forward with learning. Okay, so, and here, this completely sums it up exactly the way it happens. So even your dog is struggling with distance learning. No question about it. The dog who has endless patience to sit and stare at something that's of interest, runs out of steam when it comes to looking at a Zoom screen to advance their distance learning. So the importance of SEL for students. So a couple quick things. It ensures students acquire basic skills and work habits. And these are values for a lifetime of meaningful work. This is a positive of all of this, is that if students cope with this environment, these issues, if they see their resilience, if they learn basic skills, if their work habits improve in an online or distance learning, this builds a lifetime of good skills, which will improve meaningful work. To motivate them to contribute responsibly and ethically to their peer group, family, school, and community. So if students have this social emotional support and they're improving, they're motivated to contribute positively and ethically to the people they interact with, from their peer group to their family to the community at large, to help them develop a sense of self-worth as they deal with daily responsibilities. This is the story of the person who says, I walked a mile to school every day when I was your age, uphill both ways. And, so what are they saying? They're saying, hey, I learned I could do this. I achieved this. And that sense of achievement can come out of this experience with your help to improve their social skills and support them in developing positive relationships with peers and adults. So you're learning how to cope with a difficult environment, and you're engaging them in positive, safe, health protected behavioral practices, which they very well may get a chance to use in the future. Okay, so issues to manage for administrators and leaders, so, and parents, responsible screen time. So game-based learning, treasure hunt kind of learning environments might be good to avoid. You want them to spend time on the computer, but responsibly. Proper posture and setting for screen time. These physical issues, are very significant. I'm sure of the 30 or so people who are in the program now, my guess is a third of you have probably dealt with these issues from staring at a screen too much. Consistent classroom schedule, to avoid reduced sleep, non-interference with a regular schedule. So, this is for you, is that there needs to be some structure. People do better with structure. We all do better with structure. We're more productive. Very few people just can work on their own in an unstructured way and be hyper productive. And certainly that's true for children. So creating some structure through classroom schedule, in person, online, distance, whatever it is, makes a big difference. Include activities that require movement during screen time. This is good. I wish I always remembered to do this. Get up, move around. I mean, sitting, at a screen for hours at a time, not good for your mental health or your physical health. Be vigilant about cyberbullying. We talked about this a little bit before, is coordinating communication between peers, educating students to report problems online, and cybersecurity, and using the tools, of which there are many, and we provided a list of a number of them to ensure that there's safe use of websites for instruction, safe use of tools, be it an iPhone or a Chromebook for instruction. So 10 teaching practices to promote SEL. So social teaching practices, so student-centered discipline, teacher language. We'll give a little bit of detail to this in a second. Responsibility and choice, you're communicating this to the students, and warmth and support. So all of this, and I'd say that one of the key words at Lumos is empathy, and you need to provide this to students. You need to provide it for everybody. Everybody's struggling with things. There needs to be empathy to support them. Instructional teaching practices. So to move to the other side, cooperative learning, classroom discussion, self-assessment, self-reflection, academic press and expectations, and competence building, so that students feel that they're moving forward, they're making progress. So you're sort of balancing these two sides. Here are 10 issues for you to think about. And I just want to reiterate this point, is that done well, the entire experience that we're going to can lead to some positive outcomes for students. They can build their resilience. They can learn to be more structured on their own. They can learn more about empathy, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a lot of positives that can come. Is it difficult? Yes. Is it a struggle? Yes. Does it take a lot of interaction from parents and teachers and administrators? Yes. But in the final analysis, students can come out of it with some positive outcomes. Okay. So we have a guest, and we're going to turn it over to her in a second. I'm going to introduce her. This is Lisa Radcliffe, who's the founder and CEO of Pumpkin Futz, which is a business that makes specialized tools for special needs people, largely students, but people. She'll tell you about her business more. But she's an expert on these issues of what do these children need during this time? How are they coping with this? And I'm, very happy to say that she was a student of mine, as Mukunda was, and that I'm on her advisory board, and she's brilliant. So, Lisa, welcome. We're looking forward to hearing about your experience.
Well, thanks, Ed. I appreciate that intro. It's a little daunting, though. Hello to everyone. I hope you're doing well this afternoon. I am Lisa Radcliffe. I am the founder and CEO of Pumpkin Futz. We design and produce therapeutic play products and accessories for mostly children and adults with special needs. And we produce them all in the United States using a fully adaptive workforce, so adults with disabilities. I also sit on the board of Emma Willard School, which is a private all-girls school in upstate New York. So I've seen this issue from a bunch of different sides, including the fact that I am the parent of 2 children with special ed requirements. So in listening to this conversation or listening to the background that Ed has provided today, I'll tell you that the things that I have seen that make the largest difference. I took some notes, Ed. I learned well as your student. That golden triangle that you spoke about, I think, is a piece that's being missed by schools. The schools that I see that are doing this well are over communicating. They're really talking more than they think they have to, both between the administration and the parent and the teacher and the parent. What I'm seeing a lot of in our community, so when I talk about our community, I really think of special ed students. I'm seeing a lot of parents that feel incompetent right now. So these are parents who are struggling whether or not they have maintained their employment through this. There are so many challenges for parents in feeling competent in teaching, especially special ed students. I find that with special ed students, it's a really mixed bag. Some special ed students are doing better with remote learning than they did in a classroom, particularly because they don't have some of the sensory distractions that they do from students in a classroom. But with those same students that I'm seeing that are doing well, from a remote learning perspective, I'm seeing their parents struggle more. I'm thinking of a particular parent that I know who is herself a higher ed teacher. While her child is doing really well now that he's doing remote learning because he's on the autism spectrum, he's finding that an easier way to engage in both a learning setting. She's having a harder time getting him to adhere to this new schedule. So I think communicating with the parents, communicating and supporting them in their understanding of how they become competent as I don't want to say teachers because it's really not their function, but just feeling competent in this situation. I think another thing that I'm seeing that could help with that is using more multiple modalities of technology. So again, just before this, we did a live stream on special education in the city of Philadelphia. And the teacher that we were speaking with was talking about how you can use technology to really make accessibility for children with special needs, use that technology to its fullest. So for example, a child can answer you now in a picture. A child can take a picture of what he or she wants to say and put it in a chat function. You have ways of engaging with special ed students that are different than you've ever had before, but it takes thinking entirely out of the box. It takes recognizing that a one-size-fits-all approach really doesn't work at all with the 20% or 17% of kids who are labeled as special ed, that there's such a diversity in our population that you really need to be communicating directly to find out what is and isn't working. I think the one other thing that I would say, so I've touched on a little bit with the communication, consistency, multiple modalities. The one thing I'm also seeing in our community is a lack of social interaction. So I think you can't underestimate the places that that social interaction right now is missing for people and what it's doing to them. So children, teachers, parents, I think if schools can find a way to support and sponsor and structure social interaction for children. So maybe it's an asynchronous learning project that they do together with kids that they might not all otherwise work with. These are things that you were doing in classrooms before that I'm not seeing yet in the learning that I've seen delivered. Now, granted, you know, the school year here hasn't started yet, but it's something I would recommend based on what I saw last year, which is sponsoring social opportunities for children, for parents, because again, back to this, parents feel incompetent right now. I have a very compliant 11-year-old. He will do what I tell him to do, and yet I got to tell you, I am so unprepared to be responsible for him at the same time that I'm also responsible for my full-time job, which I do right now remotely. So I'm a lucky parent. I have a compliant kid, I have a full-time job, and I'm able to work remotely, and I feel incompetent. So I can only imagine what it's like to have 3 children, all special ed. I don't right now know where my next paycheck is coming from. I have to go out and look for a job. The parents right now are really struggling, and I'm sure you know. But if schools could help parents both in supporting them social emotionally, I think that children will do better. And the last one I would say is that teachers.
How can we do that?
How can you help parents? Oh, I
Yeah,
would
I mean,
love to.
how can we make them feel competent? I mean, I wouldn't know where to start to other than just tell them, hey, you can do this. You know what I mean?
No, think about the support that you're giving to teachers right now. Teachers are having to learn how to teach online. Parents are having to learn how to manage children during a day when they never have before. So if you could supply, and I know that what I'm asking is a lot, but if you could think about training a parent, because unless the parent is okay, your child, the student's not okay. So right now you're relying on the social emotional well-being of that parent to support the child, because that's where the child is all day every day for remote learning or even for the hybrid sessions. So if you could think about training sessions, I believe that parents would show up for training sessions just like this to talk to them about things like, how do you help your child focus? So one of the things that we know in our community is that it's a stamina issue. So you have to build the stamina to sit and focus on something. So teach parents how to help their children build that stamina. It's 3 minutes, it's 5 minutes, and then give them a positive reinforcement for it. Stand them up, get them to do jumping jacks, have them run around the room once. Parents, things that you all take for granted that you know, parents don't know how to do that. So teaching parents, like a fidget cushion, like when my daughter's in school, she has a fidget cushion so she can actually focus. Guess what? I don't have one at home. But that's something that a parent may not even know that their child needs. So I think that if you did structured trainings for parents, you would actually find children that were able to focus better and parents that felt more competent. That's my opinion.
All right. No, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
No, it
So
does help.
I think your teachers too, what we've been talking to a lot of teachers, and teachers are feeling, and occupational therapists. So we deal very regularly with occupational therapists and we have several on staff. They're feeling disconnected. So that whole peer review process where they're walking down the hall and they say, hey, you know what? I'm having this problem with Jimmy. And I was wondering if you have him in this class, what do you do with him? They're those places where they were able to connect with each other professionally are missing right now. And so we're hearing that occupational therapists and teachers would really like those structures. So they don't know how to create them for themselves. It feels artificial, but if the administration were to say, hey, you know what? Every Tuesday, we're actually going to have a roundtable to discuss learning styles and learning challenges where you can come, bring your challenge, somebody else can tell you how they tried to fix it. It will sponsor some of those communication structures that are missing for them right now. Just some thoughts. But those were my things that I took away, Ed, from what you said. I don't know if there was something you wanted me to speak about, but that was my thought process.
Yeah, fantastic. Anybody have any questions?
Lisa, I do see a question in the chat. Maybe I'll just quickly read it for you. Would love to know more about creative modalities with technology. Besides picture, are there any other methods that we could use?
Yeah, I think so. Polls. So another thing we just heard from special ed teachers are students who are uncomfortable raising their hand and answering questions may love polls because they're anonymous. And so they're not outed for saying something that might be stupid in their minds. So all of a sudden there are things that you can use using Zoom that will allow students to participate that may not participate otherwise. So the anonymity of technology can actually help with that. A lot of this depends on the teacher too. So I know you all know this, of course, but I'm seeing a real a disparity in teacher creative approaches. So, and that might be back to that if you had a round table where you could sponsor your teachers to talk to each other. So I was just speaking to a special ed teacher in Philadelphia who talked about the fact that the way she rewards her students for 100% participation in online polls is she dresses her dog up in funny hats. So she has second graders, and so if she gets 100% participation, the dog dresses up in a hat. I mean, teachers who are thinking outside the box like that are always gold, but right now they're even more necessary, and it might be possible to support them. Going back to the modalities, I've seen schools, Emma Willard has done a tremendous job of this, of layering technology so that you have technology that does things like chat really well, or does things like building word pictures really well, and you layer them over the top of whatever teaching method that you're using. Being able to use the multimedia functions. So don't just talk at students, make sure that your presentations have pictures, have words, have as we all know, kids learn in different ways. So being able to use technology allows you to now incorporate so many of those different methodologies, sound, and again, pictures. But what I was talking about specifically was the use of multiple modalities in engaging students. So using things like polls and contests and chat at the same time that you're lecturing, get them to talk to each other, get them to actually ask each other things. There are ways to now engage students that I think would be necessary to keep the engagement up. I don't know if that helped, but.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think it was the second session, we had a slide that had a number of easy to use, fun tools that you can integrate into an online class. So polls, gamifying things. I forget now what they all were, but some of them are very easy to use. Most of them are free, it's another tool for engaging. Also, I think it's makes the teacher feel good, right? It's like, wow, I've done something different. I've learned a new skill too, and it works. I'll say this as a teacher, from the very first time I started using online tools, I was amazed at how students who I couldn't get to participate in class would feel comfortable participating online. So if there was a discussion board or something like that, they're more comfortable writing. They don't feel comfortable speaking in front of people. Maybe they feel they have an accent, or, there's something they're defensive about, but, giving them an opportunity in another modality often brings them out, and it's good stuff. All right, any other questions for Lisa? We thank you so much. You're as always, inspiring font of information.
Thanks,
No, and I encourage people to check out the Pumpkin Futz website. Some of the things they make, the tools, the toys, the aids that they make are really so clever, and just interesting. Even if you don't have a special needs child in your class or at home, it's just amazing to see. So thank you very, very much. All right, let me move on to a few other things, and then we're going to come back to Dr. Peterson, who's the only person here who is not a former student of mine. I'm just kidding. So
I am today.
Okay. So some useful and productive tactics: schedule regular check-ins with students and their families, teach strategies for organization, planning, and self-regulation for all of these groups that you interact with. Read and discuss current events. So, start with, cover the facts. What's going on? Where do things stand? Assign a project that encourages students to be helpers. So make them feel like they're part of a solution. They're engaging more with people online or even in person, delivering groceries, taking out the garbage for a neighbor, anything that's a project that allows a student to feel that they're being supportive of someone else. Share stress reduction and mindfulness strategies. We've talked about some of those. Here you can go on the Pumpkin Futz website and find a bunch of things that are oriented towards these strategies. Show how we are all connected. So students, parents, teachers don't want to feel like they've just lost the connection because they're spending all their time at home. Virtual show and tells. So I guess, dress your dog up in a hat and show to everybody in your class or to everyone else. And use finish my sentence prompts to get people to, and students to engage with each other and build empathy. So active listening. I'm not going to read this slide. I will just say that some years ago I co-authored a book on how entrepreneurs have productive conversations, and the more we worked on it, the simpler it became. And really, because when a conversation is going on, people are speaking, thinking, and listening. That's it. So if you're in a conversation, those are the three things you're doing. The hardest one of those to do is to be an active listener, to not interrupt, to really hear what the person is saying, to ask questions that elicit information that helps you understand what they're thinking and what could help them. And so just saying that you need to listen quietly, that you need to listen through pauses. Movie directors long ago started showing that they understood that when people had something important to say, they would pause before they said it. And so movie directors use this tool. Somebody is, they're thinking quietly, and then they say something that's really important. That's true. That's what people do. So you need to be an active, patient listener, and you need to encourage everybody in your world to use those tools and to become really good at this. And here are some of the specifics about, keeping eye contact, avoiding distractions, finding a good place to listen. Even if you're online, not being distracted, which is extremely difficult to do. Asking relevant questions to clarify things. Body language. I got to tell you, I'm not a big believer in body language. Research shows that body language not a good sign of what a person is thinking. Of course, we all latch onto it because we can see body language from the other person. Show that you're listening. Yeah, well, I would just say really listen. Some years ago, I went to a conference and there was a side presentation on listening skills. And one of the things the presenter talked about was how to act as if you're listening. I mean, actually, this is like so long ago, and the fact that I remember it shows I was so shocked by it. But anyway, so, you know, if you cock your head to the side, that makes people think you're listening. If you let your jaw hang loose like a, you know, like a bass, you know, that shows that you're listening. You know, if you nod, that shows that you're listening. Well, you know, I don't think you need to think about doing any of these things. You just need to listen. You don't need to act like a wide-mouthed bass. Here's a, you know, cool exercises that you might find useful for, you could distribute to your teachers. Um, uh, is in is you know, language to give students to use to start interactions, and to think. So you know, so instead of saying I'm not good at this, you say how can I improve? Instead of saying I failed, you say mistakes are part of the learning process, etc. So this is a list of these. This is one that is, you know, is written up in a looks, you know, obviously from a classroom setting. And here's some more of this. Morning meetings. If you're doing synchronous classes in, you know, distance, you can use these. And then, you know, here's this, you know, creating readers and writers is, you may recall I've said, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So here you are, you're measuring words that students are using and how often they're using them. Obviously, this is for first grade. And you know, some more of these. This you know, you can read on your own. A feeling finder. This is a tool for you to help students get in touch with how they're feeling during this situation. So it prompts them with feelings that might apply to them. And of course, for your staff, here it is. So, you know, how was online teaching? You know, obviously, a lot of people suffer with this. They suffer during the learning. They don't want to look incompetent. They don't want to feel incompetent. They're not comfortable with it. I will say this, as somebody who's done it for a long time, once you get over the hump with it, it's great. But no question, students, difficult time. Okay, so let's put this into you know, one chart. So stakeholder engagement and, you know, social emotional learning visioning. Then we're going to do the learning and a climate inventory, action-based planning, preparing for and implementing practices. So we're going here from thinking about it, thinking the big picture, to developing options, to coming up with a plan, to implementing the plan with coaching and support, and assessing our efforts. So this is this managing feedback loop, and then you just do it all over again. And this will look like other things in other contexts that we've presented. Okay, so Dr. Peterson, who was a fantastic guest in one of our previous classes, we asked him to speak about this. He's the superintendent of the Essex County Schools of Technology. And so he's in a very unusual situation because so much of what his students study is hands-on. And so moving from an in-class or a lab or a you know, physical environment to a virtual environment, an especially difficult and great challenge. So, Dr. Peterson, welcome.
Thank you.
Stop sharing
Thanks.
my screen.
And I wanted to say, Ed, you had some great information there. And so I did learn from you today. So technically you are my teacher for today. So we got that.
Okay.
Lisa and I have that in common. And also, I did not realize that my wife and I have been engaging in that finish my sentence prompt activity for the last several years. So For at least the last 10 years. I'm hoping the next 10 I get to do my turn. So good afternoon. Thank you for welcoming me back as well. Um, but Lisa had some great things, and if I can just compliment some of the ideas that she started with, uh, I would say to maybe even like a parent support group, because we're doing something now where we're trying to do we're going to be doing a video for parents, because yeah, the responsibility has shifted, and they're very uncertain of their roles and expectations. It was a little bit easier, check the homework or sign the homework and do this and do that. I think we were all kind of used to that. So this was totally different. So we're trying to set up our expectations, but I think as we're talking, we've been also thinking about uh, empowering the parents, the teachers, and the students. And I know this gets scary, but I don't know if there's anything wrong with having parents and students, if the age is appropriate, to be on some kind of just committee, so that this way, listen, we're a consumer-driven economy right now, where everybody feels like they want an opinion about things. They want to know what the services they're getting. So we're experimenting with having some students and some parents and some teachers just talk about, in a very productive way, what's working and what's not working, because this is still unventured territory. This is another part where where it was emergency remote. Now a lot of us are going to be starting out remotely, as opposed to finishing remotely. And it's not necessarily emergency now. We're kind of planned for it. So that has changed. So we're experimenting with that. And that could also touch on some of those emotional SEL areas. And I liked what you were saying. What I did last year was not have any ideas, because I don't think I'm as fun as some of my principals and my supervisors. And my math supervisor, when sometimes you think of math, you think of kind of stodgy or whatever. She came up with like these fun Fridays where we really turn it into almost like pep rallies of sorts, so that and that was great. And I thought that was a fantastic idea. And we did those things for, I think it was like every Friday in the end of June, just to kind of get us through the finish line. And I think that's going to be, I think SEL has to come almost like it's its own course of sorts, or at least it has to be embedded in the curriculum, like we do with the Amistad Commission here in New Jersey, where we have it embedded in the curriculum. And I think it's at a point too where it's very interesting, where I would say we were perhaps maybe at the height of understanding and implementing SEL throughout the country. At the same time, it was taken away from us as far as the face-to-face interactions, and it's the convergence of that is very interesting to me, because it's almost as if we taught kids how to express, or the need or the importance of feelings and emotions and all that. At the same time, it was taken away. So I think that is also a real interesting thing that we have to explore. Now they know what was missing, or now that they know what is missing. So we have to develop a variety of different areas, because they're not certain of what's happening. And I also, unfortunately, I think there's going to be an uptick of cyberbullying, because whereas we went out last year and everyone was quarantined, and we had definitely a dip that in my colleagues that I've seen around that I interact with, I think there's going to be an uptick, because now there are pockets of kids going out. So that there's something now to, what is the phrase the kids say, FOMO, fear of missing out. Now there are some things that you can be missing out on, because they may be going to do this or that. So so that's on my radar. But we had a parent meeting the other day, and I had over 300 parents at a meeting, and we actually needed more room. I had to change my account to go up to 1,000 because it was just that overwhelming. And by the way, I only have 2,300 students. So 300 parents was very, very big. And just the level of just the anxiety. And we had our plan was a hybrid plan that was super flexible. And I thought it was actually very, very accommodating to every parent, where You can have your child come in 1 day a week, as we were doing, or you could do it 100% remotely, no penalties. You could also flip flop back and forth if you wanted to change. So I thought it was very accommodating, and I anticipated less questions because they were, it was so flexible. But that wasn't the case, and there was just a lot of just anxiety, just a lot of what do I do, and that's where we got the idea for the Parent Academy, as well as that support kind of group idea, because it's not the same. The responsibilities are higher, and a lot of them just want to know, what do I do? Because, and now I deal with teenagers who are, I love that population age group, but they're always one step ahead of you. They're always one step ahead of you, and they're always figuring out the system. And I love them for that. But, they want to know, because sometimes they're telling their parents, oh no, I don't have to sign in today. Or no, we don't have class this session. Or no, this is a study. And so you have to anticipate. Now, that's maybe not the same thing for the early childhood students, but it could be for middle school. And in some cases, the students know more than the parents. So as long as we get together on that, and also that consistency, that's why we created a hybrid model where it was like a half day, where even whether you're remote or in person, it looks the same. And if we had to come back to school where 100% of our students were ready to come back, we would still have the same modified schedule, so that what's going to happen every day. And it's a A/B schedule, but we have to share that, and also remind the parents that this is what's going on, so that this way we're all on the same page, because we don't want especially the teenagers, ganging up on us. So the adults got to stick together and be on the same page. And that was important, but they just want to know, what do I do? How do I do this? Help me. So we're going to need some additional support with that. Now, the teachers, the teachers are also, they have a very high anxiety level, because at least in our state here, there's a lot of mixed messages about what's open, what's not open. And my job is not to be involved in politics whatsoever, but I can only just share with you some of their concerns is that how can one thing be open, but we're going, how can restaurants still not be fully open, but the schools happen beforehand? Once again, that's not my area. I'm just, conveying some of that thought. And I think what has been helpful is me saying, I don't get it either. And I've had a reopening committee that we have been meeting since June. And I thought it was going to taper off, because sometimes, teachers get this reputation of, oh, well, they're not going to do anything for free. They're not going to do anything over the summer. It's the exact opposite. One day I was running late, and I got a whole bunch of texts and emails saying, what happened? Is it still going on? And I was like, thank you. I was running late in the car, but that's how important it was. And what we do is now we just share articles every day, and I get stuff, and we all just share it together. So even though we're still a little uncertain about what's going to happen, and our governor's going to be actually speaking right now, so I'll find out some updates. We were confused, uncertain together. And I think that's important, and I tried my best to have that internal dialogue out there, so that they knew my frustrations, and they knew some of my challenges. And they were really super, super, super supportive. And then when we had a Q&A for the teachers, which was a day or so after the Q&A for the parents, that's when they expressed those same things as well. And that was really important. The one area, so they still have some anxiety, but they realize they're not by themselves. And that, once again, was well attended. This is a summer Zoom meeting, and I had probably about, I would say, at least 90% or more of my staff on that Zoom, which was a volunteer thing. Lastly is the students. You're absolutely right, and we struggle with the sports, because if we go to remote, logic really would dictate, why would you need to have the students be in athletics? But it's just so challenging, and I don't know if anyone's right or wrong, because for some of these students, the athletics is their social life, is part of their social-emotional learning. It's their identity. And now we have taken away a bunch of identities, right? All of the think about what happens, and I'm thinking about the formative years. Much of who you are, and when we interact with parents, when parents say to me, I know my child, my response usually is, you know your child at home. I think we know that public persona who probably is going to be more who is the same public persona or very similar to what he or she's going to be looking like in the workforce and in front of everybody else. You know, how we are in front of grandma and mom is not always who we are in the workplace. So we know that other persona, and their personas are defined sometimes as being, you know, the theater kid or the musician, the band parent, you know, the band student, or all of those things. And now that's taken away. That's rough. So that's part of their identity as well. So we're trying to maintain at least maybe some of the clubs and activities, and maybe even doing some of the, at least if the coach can interact with the students, with the athletes, that could salvage something, because that's part of their identity. And I know that goes, you know, into the social emotional learning. And I think it's really important. And that's for those kids who identify in those areas. But we also have to help out all the others who don't know how to communicate or how to articulate. So we're trying to get a couple of different things to address that. One, some great guest speakers, and then others to get students to be some guest speakers, or at least younger people, because you know how it is. We could say the same thing, but if you have, you know, if you get a little bit younger, the kids will identify even more with you. So those are just some of the things that we're doing there, and I think I touched on a couple of those.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Is Zoom the main tool you use to communicate with these groups?
It is. We're looking for other platforms, and once again, we're trying to get to what we try to do is have a standard learning platform. So we might be migrating over, but once again, you know, this happened during the summer, so we don't have a lot of time for the teachers. So we're looking at this Schoology, but we realize that a lot of the teachers are comfortable with Google Classroom and Zoom. So we don't want to also upset that too, but we also realize that we need to start moving ahead, because we don't know if this happens again. We don't know what happens 2 years from now. So let's strengthen and really beef up our online component. As I think I said last time we were together, where we were emergency remote last year, where it was really, we were just taking what we did physically face to face and then transferring it over to online learning. What our mission this year is to do online learning that will be ready to have face to face when the time is ready.
That's great. Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Great.
Hey, can I just ask Dr.
Please.
Peterson something?
Please.
Dr. Peterson, Dave Bayshant, Leominster, Massachusetts. Would you object if I reach out to you outside of this, just to talk about some of the things you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. That's how we do it, right? And remember, we're teachers, so they say amateurs borrow and professionals steal.
Yeah, I've never built a wheel. I don't want to start building wheels, so let's not
Absolutely.
reinvent anything, right? That's great. Looking
I'll
forward
put my
to it.
email in the chat.
Thank you.
Terrific. Okay. So some of this is a little summary is tools for supporting staff. Communication, sound familiar? Talking about what Dr. Peterson's talking about. Accurate information, you know, tell the truth, even when it's not great news. Keep people in the loop. Consider if there's any capacity to ensure your staff gets the rest and recuperation they need. Yeah, good luck, but you know, it's good advice. Provide a regular forum to express concerns. Again, this is just repeating what Dr. Peterson was talking about. Encourage peer support among colleagues. This communication, using these tools to create committees the way Lisa Radcliffe and Dr. Peterson were, makes sense. Ensure staff are aware of where they can access mental health. So this didn't come up before, but you know, sometimes people need something beyond what their colleagues can provide them with, and they need professional support. And, you know, I read somewhere that the #1 growing profession during the pandemic has been therapists via telemedicine. And no surprise. So here's some resources for you, programs to support teachers, resilience, mindful schools, you know, all the kinds of things we've been talking about. For families, you know, this is, you've probably seen this face staring back at you online from you know, families and who are unbelievably stress doesn't get to it. So to take a overview, you know, teacher training leads to the teacher as a mediator, the student as a mediator in an ELP classroom, and then to the family. You know, so we're just rearranging the cards, but you know, everyone's a mediator, and mediator means between other people, so there's communication going on. And we're sort of back to our triangle, you know, here laid out in a slightly different form. You know, just to go back to this the topic about bullying, cyberbullying online, some strategies for keeping kids safe online, opportunities for out-of-school programs to build relationship skills, encourage community partnership and service learning, encouraging family partnerships on the school health team, and communicate regularly with parents about this issue, right? And that we're all in this together kind of approach is a good place to start. What else can you do? So we're sort of running out of time here. I wanted to, hold on one second. Mukunda, did you want to talk about this?
Sure, I know we are kind of running a little bit behind today, but I just want to thank Lisa and Dr. Peterson for making time for us. Really appreciate it. And just a quick recap. A few weeks ago, we talked about putting together a distance learning information kit. And today, as you can see in the slide, I want to give you a quick update. So that database has over 200 questions, and you will find some questions or best practices that Professor Rogoff has been discussing over the last several weeks. And I do see that there are a number of questions in different categories ranging from curriculum to technology. So very good way to get to the information that you've been learning. And I did find several interesting questions, just a couple to mention. How do you set up your rooms and lighting so that you can have an effective online class? So lots of good stuff in there. I would just quickly remind you to encourage you to go back, use that tool. You can search it, obviously, and find answers to some of these important questions. And you can also ask new questions. So if there is something that doesn't, you don't find it, you're able to use the tool, and Professor Rogoff and a team of volunteers will make an effort to respond back to that question. And of course, you please share it with your colleagues if they could potentially benefit from this. And you can also easily add it to your school website or a blog if you need to, share it with your community. So Professor Rogoff, back to you. I just wanted to remind.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and there's a link on the slide that'll, take you there. It's a cool tool. It's like a FAQ tool for our world, and try it. It's easy. It's free. Okay, we have a poll. Are you interested in presenting your learnings during the final session? So would you like to sort of take the role that Lisa and Dr. Peterson did of sort of talking about their own situation, their own learnings, their own findings, their own experience? So please respond to the poll or go on the chat and let us know. And then let's see. I'm gonna. We're trying to keep promise that we only took an hour. So I'm you know, I think we can skip this, you know, slide. But anyway, what can I say? Thank you so much. Thank you for those of you who are participated. You know, thank you for being a part of this. We'll be back in touch with you about next week. And we wish everyone well during this time of uncertainty, and hope you get clear, helpful answers in our world so that we can move forward. So, you know, thank you all very much. So,
Thank you. You guys have a great week.
you
Thank
too.
you.
Okay. Thank you, David, for participating.
Yeah, no, this has been beneficial. I mean, my district is really, I mean, to present, we're still in no man's land, and the leadership at the very top is struggling with it. Nobody has an answer. They make a presentation, they send stuff out that we haven't even seen. This is going to be the schedule at the high school, and it's like, we haven't even seen. It's just, it's difficult right now, but we'll get there. And with the help of everybody here, I think it'll help me at least be able to communicate to my staff, my students, my families on what my expectations are and how can I help them. I guess that's the biggest thing, is how can I help you, you know? So
Good. Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah, and I agree. You know, the you know, leadership is more baffled than anybody else about what to do.
yeah, that's all the way at the state level. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. So,
So
all right.
Professor Rogoff, there were a couple of questions in the chat, mostly about how do we access this PowerPoint. So I did reply, but you know, just so to
Okay.
reiterate, you know, you guys all have an account that have registered. So if you log in, you would be able to access all the session presentations as well as the video. So if you run into any problems, just shoot us a quick email. We'll be glad to help.
Super. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Harini. Thank you, Lisa. Give Buster my regards.
I will, and give my best to Perry Lynn. I wanted
I
to
will.
wave to her while she went by.
Oh.